Welcome, listeners, to a place where truth reigns supreme and genuine conversations take flight. This is Eagles Don't Quack, a show that's all about authentic dialogue on every topic imaginable. I'm your host, Olandis, and here we don't talk at you, we talk with you. From life's big questions to the tiniest curiosities, we're diving deep into honest, unfiltered discussions that matter. Join me and a myriad of guests as we explore the realm of every subject under the sun. This is not just a show, but an invitation to join a community of truth seekers and open-minded individuals. So buckle up and get ready to spread your wings as we soar into the heart of meaningful conversation. Remember, Eagles don't quack, and neither do we. Welcome back to Eagles Don't Quack. Today's episode is a powerful one. We're sitting down with Stephanie Miller, a healthcare executive, a widow, a mother whose journey through unimaginable loss, solo parenting, and professional growth is remarkable. Stephanie doesn't sugarcoat the pain, but she also doesn't let it define her. This is about healing out loud, finding identity after loss, and standing in your value. Legacy, loss, and the strength to rebuild. This is Stephanie Miller, everyone. Let's chop it up. Stephanie, how you doing?
Hey, Tony. Good to see you. Good to be here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with us. So we're definitely glad that you're here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Stephanie Miller?
Stephanie Miller is a mixed bag of growth, of self identity, and full of tenacity. So, yeah, I'm here to talk about my journey as it relates to a African American woman in this space of this world in this healthcare profession. And as you mentioned, being a post widow and kind of helping our listeners understand that there is still hope. Our circumstances don't define us, they build us, right? And our story is how we embrace and lift up others to give them hope and understand that you're not alone, you don't walk alone. So, yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share my story, my journey, and I'm ready to get started.
So take us back a little bit to your childhood. I understand you're from New York. Tell us about that, your upbringing, growing up, that part of your journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. New York, New York, so nice. They named us twice. But I am actually from Poughkeepsie, New York. Folks like to call that upstate if they're from the Brooklyn or the Bronx or Manhattan or Queens. But upstate is just a few short hops from Manhattan. And there I was raised with my parents, where my mom was a sole proprietor of a nursing home, an adult home in Dutchess County, New York. She was actually the first African American woman to hold such a prestigious profession in that town. So I was very blessed to be raised by a very strong woman that taught me the value of caring for people, and that is not a science, but it's an art. Right. So I was taught at a very, very early age the importance of extending your arm to people that are less fortunate, because we don't get to choose this journey, it's chosen for us. Right. So she taught me that at a very, very young age. And yes, from there, I went on to college and needed to explore some things that I didn't necessarily have exposure to. So I grew up in a predominantly Black community in Dutchess County. And the side that I grew up on was not predominantly Black, it was predominantly white. So my neighbors were doctors and attorneys. And as a matter of fact, our immediate neighbor was the mayor of Poughkeepsie. So I didn't have those privileges of after hour playing in the ballpark and going behind the school buildings and hanging out with the folks that we went to school with, right? I was home helping my mother do things within her business, within her nursing home. I was there helping care for some of these individuals that she was caring for. By the way, it was 18 of them, right? So she had
Wow.
18 of these individuals that she cared for. So it kind of shaped me. It shaped me to understand there's more to it than kind of just being out there in that element with friends, though that was equally as important, right? Being involved in cheerleader and some of those extracurricular activities help identify us. But I think the grassroots is what I was exposed to after hours once I came home to my real reality. And that was watching my mother, watching her go up against the setbacks, the no's, the people coming to the door and not expecting to see this African American woman standing here as the sole proprietor of this business. They were expecting some other face, some other complexion, right? Why us? Why not
Yeah.
us?
Yeah.
Right. So early on, I was able to see the strength and perseverance in identifying that, we too can have a seat at the table, right? Sometimes we have to make the table, sometimes we have to invite ourselves, but we have to know that we're worthy of having a seat at that table.
Did you understand the gravity of what your mom was doing back then growing up as a child, or was it just normal seeing your mom being a boss and taking the initiative, and having her own business?
I think it was a little bit of both, Tony. At times I couldn't appreciate it because it kept me from doing the things that I thought I wanted to do being a young child. But as I grew up, I began to understand the value and truly what it meant, and I was able to appreciate it. And if she had not, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be the person I am today. I'm a forward caring person, and I lead with my heart on my sleeve to anyone. It doesn't really matter who you are. And I can remember as a little girl, my mother becoming ill after my parents had separated and divorced. She had became ill. She had breast cancer. She had open heart surgery. She had fibromyalgia. She had a variety of comorbids, and there were times that I had to be there to take on this role of identifying how do these residents eat? How do these staff members get paid? I was writing out paychecks and I was 15 years old, writing checks to employees, having no idea really what I was doing, but knowing that I had watched my mother do this and I had grown up to learn to appreciate and identify the value in what she did and how she leaned on me to be her anchor when she was no longer able to.
So I don't
So
want to
yeah,
age you. So take us back to this time frame. This was in the what? The 70s, 80s?
yeah, early 70s. Early
Wow.
70s. Absolutely. I think my mom opened her home in 1972. That's right, and I was born in 1964, so we can do the math, Tony, we could not do the math, but, it was an early age, and, she sacrificed a lot. My dad was working for IBM, she moved us from our comfortable home out in the country parts of New York, and she put everything on the line. She was a supervisor at the state psychiatric center back then, and she resigned from that role, and I mean, talk about stepping out on faith, but she did it, and I'm grateful for it because I know for certain that all of that she exposed me to has helped me through the trajectory of what my life would then become,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll dabble into that a little bit, but yeah.
So watching your mom go through these different health challenges, being a business owner, did that influence you in your career choices, or were you the type of individual saying, "Once I get away from here, I am not going to do anything surrounding this. I'm going to do my own thing." How did that shape your career choice? Yeah.
So I knew I didn't know what I wanted to do. She thought I should be an attorney, and actually, she wanted me to take over the adult home. She really thought that I would be the one that would go into the healthcare industry, become an RN, and just take it on. And though I had a great deal of respect for the nurturing and the caring aspect of being a clinician, I'm woozy, Tony. I don't like the sight of blood. I
Mhm.
don't deal with bodily fluids too well, right? So I don't need to be cared for as I'm caring for.
Mhm.
So I knew that I knew I couldn't stomach the things that were necessary for me to be proficient at healthcare excellence like she was.
Mhm.
And so as I went through my journey in college, I studied business management and administration and marketing because I said, okay, well, maybe we'll get into healthcare administration. Maybe that's the journey for me. And it actually did not. What actually happened is my career chose me.
Mhm.
And so my career chose me as becoming a people person. And as I went through these different roles post college, and individuals began to see that I had a gift of gab, I was personable, I was relatable. I knew how to work a room. I knew how to build relationships. And that was an area that was a need because those are things that can't be taught, right? We can't teach you in the workplace how to be who you are. Those things are a part of your DNA. So I think it was a culmination. It was a culmination of identifying these things that I witnessed my mother do. as well as me defining myself and finding myself, right? And what does that mean? Taking a hard look, like, who am I? And when we graduate from school, oftentimes we don't know who we are. We
That's
just
right.
went through the process that was laid out for us to do, right?
Mhm,
So when
mhm,
we get to this crossroad of,
mhm.
okay, now I have to sit down and talk to this man across the room that knows nothing about my background and figure out if there's anything of interest that I can say that would allow me to have a seat at his table.
Yeah.
And I
Legacy, loss, and the strength to rebuild. This is Stephanie
Mhm.
Miller. Um, yeah, I mean, so being an African American girl, I'm assuming you had siblings.
Yes,
Yeah, how many did you have?
I have 2 sisters and a brother.
And so watching this happen in the African American community and seeing your mom achieve so many things, was that a driving force for you to choose your HBCU, Norfolk State? I believe that's where you went to school.
I went to Norfolk State, go Spartans.
Yeah. So what was the how did you go from New York to Virginia?
Right. Well, so back then, a little fun fact is we had a baseball coach. His name was Mr. Drakeford. And Mr. Drakeford also attended Norfolk State University. And so back then, Tony, in the early 80s, these universities, HBCUs, were about heritage, right? My mama went there, my auntie went there, the basketball coach went. So it's this big community drive to support these HBCUs. As a matter of fact, my sister went to A&T.
Mhm.
So he began talking to us because I was a cheerleader about Norfolk State. And it just so happened that my cousin Sybil, who lived in Virginia, that we were raised as sisters, she attended Norfolk State. She's a year older than I. She'd kill me for saying that, but she isn't older. She's a year older than I am. And so she would attend when she attended Norfolk State, I would go visit her during homecoming, during spring break. And I was like, okay, I think I like this, right? I like this partying on a Tuesday and getting up when you want to. So I was like, this could be really good. So between Mr. Drakeford and my cousin Sybil, and actually there were quite a few individuals at Poughkeepsie High School that also attended Norfolk State University. It just felt like home, and it was home. It was a great experience, and it helped me again live through life identifying what what it is to be an adult with no supervision, right? What kind
Mhm.
of decisions are we now going to make when our time is our time?
Mhm.
But yes, that is how I ended up at Norfolk State.
So it seems like you had a clear path, growing up in the South, and I think you have Southern relatives. I think the challenges for people in the South could have been a little bit different. And you being an African American woman, seeing the business side and seeing the forward drive that your mom instilled in her kids,
Mhm.
how do you compare that to um, today's age? If you could speak to a young woman now about what her future would look like, considering your path and where you came from, can you talk about the things they should appreciate and the things that you appreciate?
Absolutely. The journey. I think oftentimes we get caught up in the vision of what we see is going to be our path, and it sometimes is not. Most times it's not. However, each step of that path, of that journey, leads to your destination. And it's like a building block, right? It's a matter of each one of these steps, what am I going to take away and what am I going to learn from it? And oftentimes we don't take away and learn from it at that moment. Sometimes it could be 4 or 5 steps down the road when you finally realize, wow, I learned this from this experience. I learned how I don't have to be heard in every meeting. I learned it's okay to be silent because silence speaks volumes, right? I understand that I don't have to wait to be invited to a meeting. I can invite myself to a meeting. So, all these different attributes that you learn through every one of these journeys help build your character and form who you are. And that's what I would tell them. Don't miss out on your journey by missing out on the opportunity. I tell my daughter all the time, she's in graduate school now,
Mhm.
and there were times that she would pursue opportunities that she just was very passionate about. And this one particular opportunity, it did not pan out for her. She was like, Ma, I really wanted that job. And I said, Jada, what's for you is for you, right? So you just need to keep treading forward and the right opportunity will present itself. And within a week's time, she interviewed with this woman, and the woman said to her, "Were you the young lady that did the hearing screening for my daughter at Wake Med Hospital?" And Jada said, "Yes." She's like, "Oh my goodness, we love you already." And this woman remembered the impression that Jada left on her in the hospital. And we're
Mhm.
talking about fast forward 8 weeks later, she came back face to face with this same woman who offered her employment,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, had she not continued her journey and had she paused and felt sorry for herself because I wanted that opportunity and there's no other opportunity like this one because I felt this was it, she would not be where she is today. And this woman has been a godsend for my daughter. And
Yeah.
that's what we want. We want for our children to be in places where they're valued and where they're seen, they're respected, and they're heard.
Life will present challenges to you, and it's how you take on those challenges. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure you have seen your fair share of, or had your fair share of disappointments in your life. Because can you explain to us or share with us some of your unique perspective on challenges that you faced, disappointments that maybe you faced, and victories that you have overcome as well?
Yeah. So, the challenge in life that continues to be a challenge is being in this world, in this space, in this space, right? Being seen and heard as an equal. And some of the challenges that I have faced along my journey is, how do I become a part of the group and not necessarily part of the statistic of the group? So there's these opportunities where you're chosen merely because of your skin color. And then there's those opportunities that you're not chosen because of your skin color. And myself being raised from such a strong, strong woman, the challenges that I face in the workplace is that strength being viewed as value and not a threat. And that's a very difficult balance. I come from New York, so my vernacular is a little different and my emphasis are a little different, but my passion remains the same. And when you finally come face to face with an organization and or an individual or a circumstance or a person, a friend, a partner who can see you for face value and understand that you come from a place of passion and not from a place of threat, then that's going to be a wonderful place for you to open up to and to be a part of. So that has been a challenge for me that has taken a large part of my life to really unravel and peel back the layers and truly identify that there's no shame in who you are. When you come from authenticity and you come from a place where you are genuine, then there is no shame. And I come to this place, Tony, because I've read a lot of the let them theory.
Mhm.
I know you've heard of Mel, and Mel talks about how it's so quick for us to look at circumstances and challenges and people and setbacks and rejection to internalize that, but to understand who you are and to understand that people are people and everything isn't about you. You can maintain your boundaries, your dignity, and allow people to be who they are while you continue to progress with your agenda of who you are. So,
Like that.
yeah, so it's one of those things that when you're going through it is very difficult because, when your mom, when you're growing up and your parents are trying to lead the way and because they've been there already and they're trying to make it easy for you, you don't want to hear. It's like, ah, ma, right?
Mhm.
But like the old saying goes, what you put in them eventually comes out of them. So when you have someone putting that in you from day one and it becomes a part of your DNA, I like to say it becomes your anatomy. One day it comes back out.
Yeah, our experiences shape us, and that is evolution, right? So
Mhm.
it seems like your experience have caused you to evolve over time. So let's pivot back a little bit. So we're at Norfolk State. You are in the midst with your degree. So
Mhm.
what happens after Norfolk State?
Woo!
Where did
I
you go?
fell in love after Norfolk
You
State.
fell in love.
Oh, I fell in love, 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 love after Norfolk State.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that. Did that shape also did that change or alter the course of your journey? Or tell us a little bit about falling in love, being an independent woman, seeking a career, and then here comes love. Oftentimes that can
Mhm.
derail the situation.
And it derailed it.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Oh, did it derail? You are no longer thinking, you're just moving. You just moving. Thought process doesn't even come into play. You're
Mhm.
just moving, right? And
Yeah.
I tell you, it definitely derailed my plan, my parents' plan. It did. But Tony, I have I have a great appreciation for having no regrets. So as I stated to you earlier, there's always a purpose in the journey and the path, right? There's a rainbow at the end. We don't know when it's going to show up and how it's going to show up, but it's there. So yes, I dated this young man who would become my husband from the time I left college straight up until I married him and he passed away. And that totals 30 years.
Did you
Large
meet
part of
him
my
at Norfolk State or
I did not actually. He's from my hometown. And I didn't necessarily know him growing up. I kind of knew who he was. He was on the other side of town. As I said, we were kind of north side and south side. So I didn't have those after hour activities where I got to know people intimately. So I didn't really know him personally, but I was working at my aunt and uncle's restaurant, and he would come in there after work. He was a master barber. He would come in after work every day, and he just would begin to the chase, the good old chase, right? And I was hardball. It's like, no, no, I would, yeah, what do you drive? What do you live in? You know how we are. We're young and feisty, right? And so he would not. He was the most persistent man that I think I have come across to date, and he would not stop. I think he probably pursued me, if not 6 months, 7, and I just would not give him the time of day
because I
at
think
all.
you were focused probably on what's next for Stephanie Miller.
So I had a job at TJ Watson Research Center as my full-time job, and
Mhm.
that was the headquarters for IBM. I had a job part-time at the bank, the local bank at Dutchess County, and then the nights and weekends, I was working for my aunt's restaurant. So I was busy. I was busy trying to make money, find my way, get out of my mother's house, and just figure out what the next step was. Because coming home from college, let's face it, we don't plan to stay there. My
Mhm.
plan is to get this thing together, and I need to go someplace else and live my best life. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I finally surrendered to this young man and started dated him, and that went on for quite a long time, and became a little stagnant. I must admit there was an aspect of me losing myself and my journey and my purpose through the entire journey. Um, Kind of lost my values, kind of lost my purpose, and just continued on through a relationship that didn't necessarily completely serve me.
So
And
let's dive into this a little bit. So now I'm really on heightened alert here because I know oftentimes in relationships women give up a lot of things,
Mhm,
especially during this time frame that we're talking about now. And you being the woman that you are and being the daughter of the fabulous mom, that had to have been some struggle. So in today's age, when you're talking to a young woman and she's struggling with her identity, trying to find her identity, and here you are, you know, being exposed to a pioneer, being privileged to have education, and the same situation even comes up with your upbringing and your background. How do you speak to the young women that's listening about how to keep your value as a woman, you know, maintain your trajectory on where you want to be and how to have love coexist in all of this?
mhm.
Yeah.
That's a really good question, Tony. And I think it goes back to part of it goes back to being in an environment where you're exposed to strength, where you're exposed to value, where you are spoken with affirmations of you are loved, you are valuable, you are beautiful, you are worthy. You know, living these manifestations, doing these things that you are not only walking the walk, but you're talking the talk, you're walking the walk, and you're doing all of it, right?
Hmm.
So it's a quick distraction if we don't have those perimeters already identified. And sometimes it takes heartbreak, right? It takes good old heartbreak for us to regroup, sit back, and say, wait a minute, I don't want to feel that again. I've got to get myself back into alignment. I've got this degree, I've got these opportunities, and I've got this distraction. And if this distraction isn't edifying, if it's not feeding me and it's not lifting me, then it's not serving me. And you have to choose you first. At the end of the day, you have to choose you first, and it will align. When you find yourself or when this gentleman enters your world and he's aligned with you, it's going to be organic. But when you have to struggle, and it goes back to the let them theory. You have individuals that are coming at you and they're not serving you, they're not uplifting you, they don't have an agenda for themselves, they're not educated, they're not in pursuit of better, then there's no question about the direction you have to go. And
Mhm.
the thing of it is the difference, Tony, with that question. And thank you for asking that question because today's world, there's so much more access.
Yes.
Right? So there's
Yep.
more distractions, there's more influences,
Mhm.
there's more negative influences,
Mhm.
there's more competition.
That's right.
You're competing against people you don't know because you have these social media outlets that are giving snippets of fantasies of this is how I want my life to be,
That's right.
and they may not be realities.
That's right.
So you have all these things that back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, we didn't have that.
Mhm.
That's
So
right.
they have a double whammy. They have more things that they actually need to be able to be mindful of and not let those be influences. Look at it as it is. It's entertainment. As a matter of fact, do one better. Remove the screen time. Invest that into a book.
Mhm.
Invest into yourself,
Mhm.
right? Get
Mhm.
into some community services, anything that's going to allow you to elevate yourself.
Mhm.
Your son is a perfect example of that.
Mhm.
He's done all the right things, embracing every aspect of his journey and getting into the things that elevate him so that when he gets to this next stage in life, what is he doing? Caleb is he's making it happen.
Make it happen. We're talking about legacy, loss, and the strength to rebuild. This is Stephanie Miller. So you meet this young man, you fall in love, you get married, you have a child.
Yes.
So tell us about that process. So now you're married and now you have a child.
Now we're married and we have a child. And what did they say happens? The man says nothing changes, then the woman says, "We's married now," right?
Yeah,
So everything changes.
everything changed.
Yesterday was yesterday, today is today, and now we are married. And
Mhm.
so what does that mean, Tony?
Yeah. What did that mean for you?
Well, it meant a lot. It meant deeper sacrifices. It meant knowing when to hold and when to fold, right? Everything isn't worthy of an argument. And who comes first? And that is a difficult balance when you're used to putting yourself first all the time, right? It's a very difficult balance. So, my husband taught me a lot. And the one beautiful thing about him is he appreciated imperfection because he was not perfect. And he allowed people to be who they are. So you didn't have to worry about trying to impress him. You didn't have to worry about him feeling disappointed in something you may have said or done because he was a realist. And that made it very easy to communicate with him. On the other hand, he was a man. And he was a man that didn't listen all the time. And he didn't want to listen to the aspect of health, right? So, as a wife, one of the things that we do is what do? We try to make sure that our man is healthy because we need him to be around for a long time,
That's right.
right? Our black men don't always like to deal with health.
That's right.
And maybe it's our culture. Maybe we don't like to deal with health as a culture. I'm not really sure. But he wasn't one that took his health very seriously until I made it a thing. I made it a thing. And so he began to take it a little bit more seriously than he had in the past. But, you know, he was a great person and it was an experience for me to feel what it felt like to be a wife, to be loved, to be valued, to be in a partnership, to have a friend, to have a family unit. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. A lot of people experience marriage and it may fail for whatever reason, and their thoughts are, I will never do this again. Well, that's unfortunate because I don't know that we were intended to be alone, but I also don't know that we need to allow our setbacks to define us.
That's right. In 2021, diagnosed with a rare stage 4 cancer. And just hearing those words changed my entire life. And in some of our pre conversations, I understand that your husband also was diagnosed with cancer.
Mhm.
How did you feel when you first heard that? Or what was that like? Did he share that with you initially? and now being a mom, being a husband, and now hearing that your husband have cancer and you're a caretaker.
Mhm.
How did that make you feel when you heard those words?
Well, it put me in fight mode, um, because he went into the cave mode, right? He went into a cave, and I went into fight. We both couldn't go into cave. So, I don't know if I had mentioned that I come from a family of healthcare providers. My aunt is a nurse practitioner, and I have another nurse who's another aunt that's an RN. And so, it's one of those things where you just have to roll up your sleeves and you're saying, okay, we're gonna deal with this like an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So I went into that mode, Tony, and I got him a second opinion. Matter of fact, I think I got him three opinions to make certain that it was the correct diagnosis.
And what was that, if you can share? What diagnosis was this?
He was diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome, which starts off as a bone marrow disease.
Yes.
His start
Yes.
off as bone marrow disease, and the effective way to treat it is with a bone marrow transplant. And if you're not able to have a bone marrow transplant, it can be managed. If not, it can elevate into advanced leukemia.
Yeah.
Leukemia. So it was difficult. He was diagnosed based on a gout clinical trial. He had gout. He was a gout suffer from the gout, and the blood work came back off, and he couldn't participate in the clinical trial. So at that point, they suggested that he follow up with his PCP, and he was like, "I don't need to follow up with the PCP. I'm fine. I don't." I was like, "Well, I think you probably should." So we did,
Yeah.
and got a referral to a hematologist and confirmed that it was myelodysplastic syndrome, and he died from a year of diagnosis.
So what was the progression like for you watching him endure this? I'm looking for the right words because I'm still in process myself, and I know the fight and tenacity that it takes to ward off this deadly disease and to have a fellow comrade in this fight, and we
Mhm,
all respond differently.
mhm,
What did you see in him? You said he went into cave mode, but for our listeners out here that are suffering from an illness or disease that's trying to purposely kill them, what did cave mode look for him, and how did it make you feel when you couldn't enter the cave to bring him out?
Ooh, I could not enter the cave. I could not enter the cave. I had to use the village of support. I think, having not been in his shoes, I know there was an element of denial of it's not as bad as they say it is. There's a piece of surrendering. Apparently, from what he shared with me, he was raised to believe that he
Yeah.
wouldn't live past 50 because that was the trend of his family. Men didn't live past 50, so he felt, well, if I die, then I outlived my father. But that wasn't an option for me, and it wasn't an option for our family, and it wasn't an option for him. So we needed to fight. And so it took a lot of tears, a lot of conversation, and a lot of prayer. And ultimately, he got on board. He got on board a little bit, Tony, but if I could be honest with you, I don't know that he ever really did get on board completely. I think he did just enough and was okay with the outcome.
So treatment and other things were available, and he just chose not to participate.
He chose not to comply. He
Okay.
participated, and so he was struggling with the possibility of his mortality, his family, his employment. Am I prepared? And are we ever prepared? Right? How do you prepare for the unpreparable?
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So there was no real preparation for that, and the treatment, it was rough. It was outpatient treatment. He was driving from Poughkeepsie to Memorial Sloan Kettering, which was about an hour and 20-minute ride each way,
Yeah.
and it wreaked havoc on his body.
Yeah.
And, trying to still function and being as ill as he was is very difficult. And if you don't have the strength, the determination, the will, the support, the faith, the determination to push through that, it will take you.
Faith is important, Stephanie. That is what got me through this and continues to get me through. My faith in Jesus, my faith in God, and knowing that in the end I'm going to be healed. But on the opposite side of that, being a caretaker, was there a point in time that you asked God why? I didn't ask why, and I don't look down on people that do. But as that caretaker and you watching all this happen and you growing up in a household that's God fearing and you believing that God will heal your husband, was there a time when you question all of that?
Tony, I did not. You know what I said to God? Thank you. Thank you, God, for making me into the person that you created. Thank you, God, for exposing me to the environment of my childhood to be an organic caretaker, to understand that sometimes people don't have the ability to do it on their own and they need that added help. Thank God that I am this man's wife and I'm able to get him to the best possible care available to man. So, you know what, God? I thank you. I thank you for that. And where he couldn't thank him, I did. Because Tony, there's people that don't have health care. There's people that don't have the ability to get the best care. There's people that don't even have someone to advocate for them, to push
Mm-hmm.
them, to hold their hand, to
Mm-hmm.
encourage them. And to have that, to thank God. And my husband actually thanked me. He actually thanked me. And, he said, Steph, thank you for saving my life at one aspect of his journey. I said, I didn't save your life. I said, God did. And so thank God. Just thank God for having me as a vessel in your life and understand that this vessel is placed here for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I never said why. I just said thank you because you know what, Tony? When I tell you I kicked into this gear, my husband was diagnosed, my mother had died a year prior.
Wow.
I had just buried my mother. As a matter of fact, Tony, I buried my mother in December of 2014. It wasn't even a year. He was diagnosed in June. So it was more like 6 months. And so I just kicked it into high speed. And, you know, had to ask the right questions. You need to ask the doctors why, not God. We don't question God, but we're going to ask the doctors, well, why this treatment? Well,
Mm-hmm.
why are you saying this diagnosis? Well,
Mm-hmm.
why are you saying this is the only option? Why? Right? And when you are engaged with your care and you're engaged with your care team, then you're going to get those better outcomes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, on this show, we want to talk about it all. We want to have these deep conversations, and mental health is really important. How did you endure that mentally? From my understanding, you and your husband at the time were looking at properties here in North Carolina, and you eventually moved here
Mhm.
while he was still in process fighting his cancer journey, going back and forth. And how was that on you just mentally as a wife? Now you're here in North Carolina and you bought a property and your husband is sick in New York and you're going back and forth, and that had to be tough on you. Can you talk a little bit about that and how did you protect your mental health?
It was a village. So I had a daughter that was active in basketball. And when I say active, AAU basketball, it's all over. It's a circuit. It's called a circuit for a reason. It's everywhere. And I was in hospice care at the time. I was a provider relations representative for hospice, which meant that I was interacting with individuals that were faced with similar diseases and diagnoses as my husband. I was speaking with families and giving them encouragement in terms of support services available and all the different things that come involved that are related to actually being ill and or being in hospice. And I doubled down into my work. I found my peace in my work. That was my outlet, right? And it gave me the strength to continue to deal with him. And that's the beautiful thing in life, right? Oftentimes, oftentimes, probably more times than not, we are faced head on with these diseases and these circumstances that we don't anticipate happening to us. And where is that outlet? What do we do? Where do we go? People say, I know how you feel and I'm sorry. Well, do you really know how I feel and are you really sorry?
Right.
What Let's get down to brass nails. Like, what does that really mean? So for me, watching my mother, Tony, go through days on end when she had no staff and she was exhausted and she was sick with fibromyalgia, every bone of her body aching, and still caring for these individuals. I had it in me to do just that. I know nothing other than that. That's
That's
all I
all you know.
know. That's all I know.
Mhm.
And so when he became ill, I just kicked myself into high gear and just did what I know how to do. And it just goes back to, again, those elements that we're exposed to, us identifying truly who we are, where we find our value, where do we find our strength. And none of this happens without God, right? You talk about we had a chapel at the hospice home that I worked for. We had a chapel right there. I was in that chapel every day. And my manager would say to me, Steph, how are you doing? How are you doing this? How are you holding up?
Pouring out to God.
Pouring
And
out to
as you pour out into humanity, he was pouring back into you.
pouring back into me, Tony, every single day. Every single day I was inside that chapel praying, giving him thanks. Sometimes I was in there sobbing, but I'd come out with an S on my chest, not for Stephanie, but for Superwoman. I'm
Yeah.
like, let's get it on.
Yeah. So, doing this process, you see your husband going through this situation, and the moment arises that he passes away. Can you share with us how that made you feel, and what was that like for you, that moment that happened?
Absolutely. Well, obviously, aside from the immediate emotion of him losing life, those final days we were with him in the hospital. And when he was clearly from my training, I could identify that he was transitioning. And our daughter wanted to sleep with him in his hospital bed that night. She was 15. So he says, "Come on, Jada," because he never said no. He says, "Come on." So they got up in that hospital bed together and she fell asleep on his chest. And eventually, fast forward through everything that went on, they both were sleeping. And I woke up to feeling some bodies over me, standing over me, and it was the doctors. And when I looked up at the doctors, they said, "I'm sorry." So when I looked at my husband, who looked like he was peacefully sleeping, guess who was peacefully sleeping with him? My daughter. They both were in the bed. She was sleeping on his chest.
That's powerful.
He was no longer with us, and she was sleeping. You can't write a story like that, Tony.
Mhm.
And that alone told me he's at peace. We're going to be okay. God's got us. So from that moment, um, you know, it, it was a process. It was a process post funeral, supporting my daughter and her feelings and her emotions, and trying to figure out, what does that support look like? What does that support look like? We go to the church? Do we go to bereavement? Do we pretend it doesn't happen? Here we are. We have this child that's 15 years old that we've got to get her back through life, and not allowing this moment to set her back and keep her back,
Mhm.
right? So, what it felt like is, you're just running and you just don't stop. You just keep going, just keep going, you just keep going.
Yeah. Strength and vulnerability.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this process happens, and now you find yourself in North Carolina with your daughter.
Mhm.
How did you refine womanhood at that point? How did you rediscover your identity now as a widow, a single woman
Yeah.
facing loss?
Yeah. I don't know that I have. It's been 9 years. It's been 9 years. And it's a daily process. Um, because initially, with Jada, my daughter being so very young, there's still a hypersensitive focus on her and getting her where she needs to be. And now that she's where she needs to be as an adult, the last 5 years, 6 years has been pivotal for me. and pivotal in how do you date? What does that look like? I've committed myself to my profession for all of these years, and now I'm balancing my profession and what comes along with that, and now being single. But I'm not single at the age I was when I got married, right? So I'm single now as an older woman. So when we're older, we look at relationships and dynamics a little differently because we're different, right? We've aged, we've got all these elements that all those decisions that we just talked about now are coming to fruition. Okay. We've been through all that stuff. Now, where did it land us? It's almost like putting all these marbles on the ball, shaking them up and hoping that you get the right one out, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's like, okay, what we left here with Stephanie? So, that it's I haven't figured it out. I don't know that I have a good answer for you. I know that, in today's world, which is unlike when we grew up, where you ask for someone's for your phone number, you ask, will you be my girlfriend or my boyfriend? And, we don't do those things any longer. So you tend to just try to find your way. And I'm not a social media person, but I am a person that wears my heart on my sleeve and an organic giver. So that in itself is a risk, right? Because we just don't know, we don't know. So it hasn't panned out successfully yet. I've met some incredibly interesting individuals, and I think it takes someone that is ready to receive love without threat, one that's ready to give love without feeling as though they're giving up a piece of themselves, right? And just look for someone who organically is looking out for their best interests and a giving and loving nature may or may not be difficult to find. I haven't quite nailed on it yet. I might have come close to it, but I don't know that I've found it yet.
I'm sure there's some lovely ladies listening that's probably sitting at the table saying, "That's me. That's how I feel about it too."
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure things have changed a lot since you first getting married.
Hmm.
How did that affect your daughter? I mean, we talked a lot about you overcoming, and we've mentioned her a little bit, but how did all this affect her, and how did that affect your relationship with her?
Well, so Jada, my daughter, and I, um, we have a very close relationship, and she admires me. And we are, as adults, we are great friends as obviously parent and child. And, she gives me permission. She's gone through her process with the loss of her dad, that grieving. Basketball was a distraction and a motivator for her as well, right? And she's gone through her own setbacks with relationships and dealing with the loss of her dad and that whole balance, which has not been easy for her. But she's put the work in, and I'm so proud of her because she put the work in and she's faced the pain, which a lot of us don't want to do, Tony.
Right.
We don't want to face the pain. We want to get through it, but we don't want to go through it to get to the other side of it.
That's
We don't
right.
want to touch it, right? It's
That's
painful, it's
right.
hurtful, it's ugly. I don't want to peel back the onion. I don't want it. I don't want it, right?
That's right. That's right.
But she did it. She did the work. So she gives me permission. She's at a point now. She's like, "Mom, you're so beautiful." She's like, "Dad's gone." She's like, "You need to live your life." And I don't buy things for myself. She knows that I'll give the world to anybody and I won't give it to myself. And she's like, "Why do you feel bad when you do things for yourself?" And it's because from a little girl, Tony, I've been nurtured to give to other people. And it's just what I do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Some people are called to that. I tell my doctors and my nurses and people in the profession that you're in, I call that angel work. And
Hmm.
people are called to that type of work.
Yeah.
Some get to choose and others are chosen. And I believe people like you are chosen for that, and you didn't have a say so in it. When you
Yeah.
were born, that's what you were going to be. That's what you're going to
Yeah.
do. I
Yeah.
mean, you talk a lot about standing in your value,
Hmm.
knowing who you are as a woman, and knowing who you are in your faith in God. Can you tell us how did that come about? Why are you so passionate about standing in your value?
I think it's because I've witnessed what it looks like if you don't, right? And I also have a family that is so passionate and grateful and dependent on me standing in my truth and what I represent. And Tony, when you go through life and it's the small things, right? And you have someone that takes a moment to send you a card and said, "Thank you for being you." I have an entire drawer full of cards from strangers, from family members, from neighbors that are just saying, "Thank you. Thank you for being you." Right? So that is my motivator. That is what keeps me grounded to who I am. I'm not perfect, but I also don't make any apologies for being who I am because I know I lead from a place of being genuine, and it doesn't matter if it's received, it doesn't matter if it's misinterpreted. I just know that I know where it's coming from. And I think that's what keeps me grounded and focused to make certain that I continue to be the best version of myself that I could possibly be.
What would you say to other women who are rebuilding after loss or change? What would
Mhm.
be your message to them?
Take some time. Take some time to get to know yourself, court yourself, love yourself, go out and be by yourself. Just take some time. And it's okay to be alone. A lot of women think that we have to be with someone. It's beautiful to be with someone. But in order for us to be able to know what it is we're looking for, we have to know what it is that we have inside of us. And we have to be able to take those holes, those valleys, those hurts, those traumas, those pains, all those things. We've got to face them. We've got to sort through them. We've got to tuck them because they'll always be a part of us, but they don't have to be who we are. And a lot of times women, they lead with their past, right? They have all this baggage back here. And then we're like, well, when I meet this one, he's not going to do this. Well, no, none of that matters, right? None of that matters if you invest in yourself first. You invest in yourself first, you won't be mistaken, you won't be misunderstood, and you'll be able to identify clearly what it is you want. And it's okay to be alone.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
truly okay.
Well, you're never really alone. You have
You're not.
God with you and you're
That's
never
right.
alone. The Bible says, acknowledge him in all thy ways and he
That's
shall
right.
direct thy path. So
That's right.
with a friend like that, you can't go wrong.
Never. And I haven't. I
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So as an African American person and all people, and you being in the healthcare profession, what's something you can leave with us generally about the seriousness of health, taking care of your health, preventative health, advocating for your health, anything in that line?
Well, Deion Sanders said it best, right? Pay attention. Get yourself checked. So when I entered this healthcare arena, by default, I will say, I was in radiology, and I can recall being interviewed and being told that I would talk to individuals about mammograms and MRIs and all these different diagnostic testing that I had not had because I was young. One day, I was talking to an individual and she says, "Well, what does it feel like?" So I described it, and she says, "Well, have you had one done?" The answer was no. So I went home and I said to myself, "Stephanie, how can you begin to explain to any person the importance of taking care of their bodies with wellness checks and all the other medical diagnostic testing available to keep us on track if you're not practicing it yourself?" So I went and had a variety of tests done just so that one, I needed to have them done. If otherwise I could be able to describe what it's like. And now I advocate. Anybody that you know that knows me will tell you, "Oh, here comes Stephanie. Did you get this done? Did you try this? Did you get this test done? You need to get this done." And true story, Tony, true story. When I was 40 years old, I had a colonoscopy for the first time.
Did you?
And the gastroenterologist that performed the colonoscopy wanted to know why I actually scheduled it. I might have been 45. And I said, "Well, because my husband, who was sick at the time, he met our deductible. And I decided I'm going to have this colonoscopy." So he hugged me after I woke up from this procedure. And I said, "Why are you hugging me?" He said, "I'm hugging you because this is your colon and this is what I removed." He says, "This is what we call a precancerous so and so polyp." And it
Hmm.
was like 14 centimeters, millimeters big. It was pretty big. And he said, "Had you waited another 5 years where insurance said that you were of age to have this test, you would have had full blown colon cancer."
Wow. So that preventative maintenance that you were doing on your body
That's right.
perhaps curtailed what could have happened.
That's right.
We need to get tested.
We need to get tested.
I was
You-
just like that. And it's something in our DNA that we feel like we can just throw a little ice on it, put some
Mhm.
alcohol on it,
Mhm.
drink a ginger ale,
Mhm.
all those things that we learn as folklore that,
Mhm.
prevents us from going to the doctor. And so that's great advice.
Mhm.
Thank you for talking about the different layers of womanhood, leadership, grief, identity, strength. So let's do a quick rapid fire. You want to do that? Quick rapid fire.
We can.
All right. So if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would it be and why?
If I could be anywhere in the world, where would it be and why? At this very moment, today as we speak, if I could be anywhere in the world, it would be Costa Rica. And why? For one, I have a trip planned to go there in 30 days and I have not been.
That was a setup.
And I am not world traveled, Tony. And, my goal for the rest of this time that I have on this green earth is to be places that bring me joy, peace, and happiness. And if that's blue waters and blue skies and people that I've never laid eyes on before, then so be it.
Nice. Favorite TV show?
I love Lucy.
Why?
Because she lives with no regrets. Lucy, she always finds a way to do what makes her happy. She always has the next great idea on how to accomplish something, and that is me all day long. I don't take no for an answer. and and if it could be done, I'm gonna figure out how to get it done. And she every single night I watch I Love Lucy for at least 2 hours.
How about that? I was not
Every
expecting that.
yes.
Favorite color
Purple.
and
Royalty.
why?
It's royalty.
Royalty.
That's right.
How about that?
That's right.
Stephanie Miller, ladies and gentlemen, legacy, loss, and the strength to rebuild. Stephanie, where can people find you at? What's your handles?
Well, they can find me on Instagram, they can find me on Facebook, but most importantly, find me on LinkedIn
Under what?
under S. Miller, and that's it.
S. Miller. Y'all
That's
heard
it.
it first. S. Miller. Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter.
No Twitter,
No
just
Twitter.
LinkedIn. No,
Just LinkedIn.
just LinkedIn. I can't do Twitter, Tony. That's too many.
That's too many.
Too
Well, thank
many.
you for such a wonderful conversation. You guys can find us on WARR Radio. You can find us on 103.5 FM, and you can find us on 1520 AM. Thank you for listening to Eagles Don't Quack. This has been a
Welcome
pleasure,
listeners to
Stephanie
a
Miller.
place where
Thank you,
truth
Tony.
And we
reigns
look forward to
supreme
talking to you again.
and genuine
Thank you so
conversations
much.
take
Thank
flight.
you.
Okay.